All right. All right. Welcome to Blake Street Banner. One of us knows what the word banner means, and the other one's along for the ride. I butchered that. I saw it go live, and I went right into it. So, Noah, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, another week down of Major League Baseball, and the Rockies are not rolling right along, but we're getting there, right?
Absolutely. And I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. What's it feel like to be part of the media? You're an official media member.
It's yeah. I don't even know. I've been trying to put together in my head what to call it, like official MLB credentialed media member, I think is the best way to summarize it. I don't know. It's super exciting. It's mind blowing. Honestly, it's a dream come true. And this summer is going to be a special summer. And I tweeted out, I mean, if you haven't bought stock in Blake Street Banner, then you need to get on that now, because this summer we're going to the moon, baby.
Absolutely. You're a professional now, and Blake Street's going to go public very soon. So, all right. So let's dive right into it. Let's revisit some hot takes from last episode. You remember what your hot takes were? And if so, how'd you do?
So I remember, for record, I went 3-3. I thought the Rockies could get their first series win of the year on the road. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We only were able to get one on the 6-game trip. So I missed there. And then my other one was that Chuck Nasty was going to hit 2 bombs in Philly, because he seems to always do that. And unfortunately, the offense was just kind of stinking it up, other than that 8th inning, which, I mean, I know we lost yesterday, but it was nice to see a little 5-run explosion. But what about your takes? How'd you do?
Yeah, it was good to see a little fight back from the boys. Like you, I was a little overly optimistic, said we'd go 3-3. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I did say that Nolan Jones was going to hit his first home run, and that happened almost immediately. So that was good to see.
Yeah, we got to keep a tracker going throughout the year and see, I mean, right now you're 1-1, you got 1 point on the board, and I'm 0-for. So we'll see how that ends up by the end.
Yeah, it's a long season, so plenty of points to make up here. So the record wasn't positive, but other than that, what positives did you see?
I think one of the things that stood out in a week that let's talk about the first game of the trip in Toronto was awesome. We put up 12 runs, we won 12-4, 20 hits, and over half of them were extra base hits. It was amazing to see. I really felt like an explosion was coming on. I think McMahon had 4 hits, 3 of which were doubles. Nolan Jones got in on the act, hit his bomb, and even KB laced an RBI double. It was looking great in that first game. Another positive storyline that's blossomed and continued throughout the start of the season has been Michael Toglia, currently leading the team in homers, and it's been a fun one to watch so far.
1-0 after 1, first and second, and 1.
Yeah, I mean,
Brendan Rodgers.
Getting after Gosman was
deep right,
a
and
good
it's going to
feeling.
get down. It's going to tie up the game at least. RBI double for Brendan Rodgers. All
McBride having 3. Sorry, McBride. I keep getting that mixed up. Sorry, Aaron. But yeah, having 3 doubles in a game, that's fantastic. But other than that, it's been tough sledding. And we learned today that KB is back on the IL, which is not great to see. To your point about Michael Toglia, leads the team in home runs, does have the 122 average, which isn't great, but, making the hits count. So that's good. How about the pitching staff? Are you seeing any positives from that side of the ball?
So I thought that it was discouraging to see Feltner get knocked around a little bit by the Phillies, but really the long ball was just what took him out of that one. Other than that, I think he's easily been the brightest spot on the pitching side of things. In the bullpen, though, got to talk about Victor Vodnik. So far this year, he's pitched 12.1 innings. He hasn't given up an earned run yet, and he struck out 11 batters. So we talked about there has to be guys that step up in the bullpen. There's one. You'd love to see a second or a third. But what about you? What have you seen from the pitching side of things?
Vodnik obviously is the glaring gold star, so to speak. He's really separating himself right now. As you mentioned, Feltner, amazing first start, second start, obviously pretty rough. So just establish consistency, because obviously the stuff is there and he's more than capable, right? It's just putting it together. So the good news is that you have the next 2 series at Coors Field, which bodes well for the offense. The pitching staff just needs to be somewhat competent, and I think we can hang around. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. Other than that, McMahon's obviously the bright spot offensively. Tovar, we'll get into that here kind of at the end. But we're 20 games in, and unfortunately the record isn't anywhere near where we'd hope it be. But that's not necessarily a horrible thing, because that means a lot of the younger guys are going to get a spot to shine, right? And that means a lot of our guys that we follow down in the minor leagues, they're going to get called up at some point to make a mark on the game. So we look forward to those for sure. So through the 20 games, let's just talk about where we rank amongst the major leagues in offense. We're 22 in homers. We're 20th in runs per game, which actually is a little bit better because we're on the road, and historically the Rockies on the road, they're not putting up or what do you call that? 2 teams.
Explosive numbers, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Not explosive, but we're going to be at Coors soon, so you expect that to go up. Walks, 25th. Strikeouts, we're 5th in the major leagues. So that's a number we need to see go upwards. Stolen bases isn't good either. So, and then pitching, we're in 30th or worse in almost every stat. We only have 1 save in the entire season. You only have 4 or 5 wins, so it makes sense. But a lot of these things are going to have to improve, because we're on track for a historically bad year, which isn't great to say. And historically, the Rockies have always performed really well in April and May. And if we're not doing it right now, then I'm not trying to let my pessimistic side out, but that's where I'm at with things. What do you have to add?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we're 19, 20 games in. The whole league is about 20 games in. And the biggest glaring hole has been the strikeouts. You can't strike out the 5th most in Major League Baseball if you're going to walk the 5th least amount on offense. And we heard all offseason that they were going to run more, and they have 6 stolen bases, which is 27th in Major League Baseball. The other day, Aaron was talking about we need to see Doyle get on the board. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous that it took until game 19 for him to swipe one, and he was able to. So that's out of the way. Maybe now he gets on a little bit of a roll there and starts timing it up, getting aggressive. I think you talked about it's important to emphasize 20 games is only about, well, it's just over 1/8 of the year. So you're over 10% in, but essentially it's basically 10%, a little bit more. There's plenty of time for all it takes is 1 week to wash the bad taste out of your mouth and get momentum rolling, which is such a big thing. When sometimes I look at struggling teams and I think, man, how do the guys continue to show up each day? It's got to be hard rolling into the parking lot and getting the stuff out and doing all the work. But baseball is a game where you fail 60% of the time, 70% of the time, and you just have to match 30% of the time with your teammates 30%. But you mentioned that the young guys are doing their thing, and one of the guys that we called up, Sean Bouchard, in his first game of this year, he's always been able to get on base and hit the ball every time he's been up. but he was able to get a hit, walk twice. He looked really good in that finale in Philly, put together professional at-bats like he seems to always do, truly. When looking at his history of call-ups and getting sent down, I think he's been a victim of bad timing a lot. He gets called up towards the end of the year, and then the year ends, and you can't continue that momentum. He's gotten hurt before. He's never been able to put together a prolonged run in the big leagues where he's getting consistent playing time. And with Bryant on the 10-day injured list, after he ran into the wall on a great catch in right field in Toronto, but he stuck in there for about another half inning, then was yanked. I think with him on the injured list, if you're Bouchard, you have to take advantage. It's just tough because you don't know where the guaranteed at-bats are going to come from. And, I mean, let's be honest, Nolan Jones was able to get off the schneid a little bit by hitting his first homer. He still just has not been who last year he was and we were so impressed with. But, you know, he said he's historically a slow starter. How far can we take that before we start to be concerned? But Sean Bouchard, period. This homestand he has a chance to separate himself a little bit here and earn big playing time.
Got a question for you right on this. So is this KB injury kind of a blessing in disguise?
I mean, I'll take it first, James, and you can give your thoughts. When you're paying someone the most on your payroll, you never want them out of the lineup. But when someone's been struggling as bad as he has, and we've seen this with bullpen arms a lot in Rocky's recent history, they'll be struggling, and then all of a sudden, Buddy will place them on the 10-day with back stiffness, arm soreness. Then they'll come back and be a little bit better. And I'm sure this isn't what's happening to Bryant, but I think this period off could do him right in getting reset on the positive path. But for now, I guess I would look at it as a blessing in disguise, just because I want to see what we have in Bouchard, even if it's only 10 games.
My immediate thoughts is the outfield is the one position group where the Rockies are blessed to have a little bit of depth. So I'm not too concerned. What I am concerned about is seeing KB on the IL once again. You know, how long is it truly going to be is my question. I hope it's just the 10 days or, you know, a little bit past that, but it seems like it's kind of the same old song and dance. And I promise you, I'm not trying to be pessimistic with this, but it just seems like he always ends up with something. And hope he comes back and can be the star player he's going to be, but he just hasn't proved that yet. So until that comes to fruition, I'm just going to be thankful that we do have the depth that we do at outfield. And I'm going to be really excited for the young players that we have that can play. So Bouchard, seeing him play more, I think that's going to be really exciting. And then you talk about the outfield depth that we have in the minor leagues. I'm really excited about potential call-ups that could happen so that guys can start to show themselves on the biggest stage. And I have a couple names in mind specifically, but I'm excited for that. And it's too bad KB's on the IL, and I hope he gets healthy soon and can be that star player. But until then, you know, I'm just going to be excited for the young guys.
Yeah, and I have a question for you going right along with that. And it's a little bit of some discussion I saw online in the Rockies community this week. If Beck gets called up, like a lot of fans want Beck to come up, and I'm sure that was one of the names that you had in the forefront of your mind.
It was, absolutely.
Veen is bursting onto the national stage right now, or he's reemerging after he got drafted. He's been struggling with injuries. Benny Montgomery just won Player of the Week. At what point will this amount of outfield talent knocking at the door eventually lead to the Rockies have to make a trade? And I don't even know who would be the first to be packaged up right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just right off that, it's so great to see Benny Montgomery's name back into the Rocky prospect scene. Jordan Beck, we're all really, really excited for that. Obviously don't want people to be called up too soon. But, I mean, KB's not the only injury that's going to happen throughout the year, right? We're going to have different things happening, a lot of different moving pieces, so lots of different chances for guys to to come and go, and some people that get called up and sent back down that we don't necessarily want to be sent back down. It's just the way Major League Baseball goes. It really is a grind and a marathon, right? But talking about trade pieces, that's a really interesting question, because the way the early season's trending is obviously the smart move is that the Rockies would be sellers at the trade deadline. Who's the most valuable pieces? Historically speaking, relievers are always the most valuable pieces to be immediately moved. I don't see a ton of those type of talents and calls coming in for for the Rockies bullpen right now. Vodnik, obviously, he's separating himself, but he doesn't have the track record quite yet. So I'm not worried about that. I think about guys like Diaz behind the plate. He could be a valuable piece for a team that's looking for some catching help from the offensive side of things. And obviously, he's a great defender as well, throwing guys out. So he could be a really good piece. McMahon could be a piece. Outside of that, I'm not really quite sure. What about you? What are you thinking?
Well, I think if you look at the Rockies organizationally, more specifically, I'm going to rule out AAA right now just because the numbers get so skewed there. But AA talent, where a lot of our higher prospects are, and at the majors, the outfield is a logjam, and first and third is a logjam. I think, how far is the front office going to ride this Montero Tolia train? And honestly, I know kind of harped on this last week, but Montero is still putting together great at-bats. And if Tolia is going to turn into this 3 true outcome guy where he hits a home run, he strikes out, or he walks, if he's able to do it effectively, you might continue to leave him in. I think, as we were discussing this, a name that popped into my mind was Hunter Goodman, because he came onto the scene, played outfield, played a little bit of first base, and now he's another guy that I think Rockies fans might forget about, but he played pretty well when he was up. I know he started hot, then pitchers started to get a scouting report on him, struggled with the strikeouts, but that's going to happen. That's going to happen, and you just have to let a guy continue to play through that. So trade pieces are really tough. I think Diaz would be, and I don't want any of these guys to get traded, but if we were to list candidates, Diaz would be one. Bard, he's hurt, so you can't trade him. But if he was healthy, he would have been one, because his contract expires at the end of the year too. Mm-hmm. And I think if they were going to part with McMahon, that would be one of those ones that, they sent some ripple effects through the fan base, to be honest.
So with all that being said, let's say you put your GM hat on, James, Noah, what is the very first move? What is the very next move that you do to start turning this franchise around to make the playoffs in 2026?
2 years.
Well, one name we didn't mention, and I don't really want to, but I think makes logical sense, is Rogers at second base. So you have some guys up through the system that are making a name for themselves on the prospect list that play middle infield. So I think that's somebody that you could potentially part with and get some pieces in return. And that's really what it's about, especially from the GM side of things. It's like, okay, well, what, obviously, return on investment, what can I get for later down the road? And it's Diaz, it's McMahon, and it's Rogers. Outside of that, there really isn't much. I don't think there's going to be many calls on any of the other pieces, unfortunately. That's just the way it's going to be. But those are the 3 pieces that you could potentially move. If somebody in the bullpen ends up really separating themselves, you could move one of those for a position prospect that could pay dividends later on. But that's remain to be seen, right?
So what move would you actually make? You're not answering the question again, sir. Like, are you going out and you calling out Boston? Like, yo, I need some starting pitching because they're outstanding right now. And how do we sell that? Like, what are you bringing in to make the playoffs in 2026? Make a call, sir.
I don't think I'm making any call right now. We're 20 games in. So ask me when we're 60 games in, and I'll give you a better answer. But you can never have enough pitching, right? So if you have a logical chance to make the playoffs 2 years from now, you have to go get a starting pitcher. And I mean, that's it. And you just have to roll the dice and see what happens. But even then, it's not a guaranteed, oh, I'm going to move McMahon for 2 starting pitchers with the Red Sox, whoever it is, and, know for a fact that that's going to play out the way it is.
Yeah, I think Rogers, I'm trying to think of guys that would come to mind to be traded, especially for the fan base. And Nolan said as Nolan said in the comments, Rogers has been underwhelming this year. And I think even, man, in Toronto, I thought he drove the ball. You saw the clip. He drove the ball opposite field, got a double. And then all of a sudden, half the locker room gets sick. And he missed a couple games in Philadelphia. So who knows if his footing's back or if that sickness knocked him right back off his feet. But I know one guy that a lot of fans would say they'd move to bring in talent would be Charlie Blackmon. That's not going to happen with the state that the Rockies offense has been striking out and walking with. We're striking out way too much and walking way too little. And Chuck has been one of those guys that you watch him hit and it's a professional AB, and it's been like that for a decade plus now. To answer Aaron's question, if we had to make a move, yeah, as you said, James, it's only 20 games in. I really want Dollander or a splash prospect to make a debut for this team. And I know Veen used to be the one with that hype online, and the fan base was all behind him. I think Dollander, the way he's performed, I guess I know it will be a while until he's up, but I wish it weren't that way. And that would be probably the most aggressive move I'm comfortable taking as a GM, because it's better to find out now what you have in the tank. And I don't care if you limit him to a 50 pitch count. I mean, I just want to see him at the big league level. And yeah, Nolan, throw that up on the screen. Beck has been great. I think the whole fan base is clamoring for him to get called up. And honestly, I don't want to go on record for saying anything, but end of mid-June is what I would hope, right? I was going to say end of May. I think last year, if I'm remembering correctly, Doyle came up end of May, middle of June. It might have been earlier than that, maybe mid-May. And I really should have fact-checked that. But he came on, started hot, and then kind of made a living off of his glove for a while. And this year, I mean, Aaron's hot take of him being a 2020 guy is off to a great start now that he finally stole the base. But yeah, it's 20 games in, and you can't make too many crazy calls.
Yeah, so
Doyle debuted in April 24th last year.
Okay, wow, so much earlier than I thought.
Almost like a season, yeah.
So yeah, real quick, back to your point about the fan comment. Rogers is a professional hitter, so he's off to a slow start. I think he'll figure it out. Chuck is a guy that can hit until he's 45, just like a guy like Justin Turner, somebody like that, right? Nolan Jones, he's a guy that's going to play because of his arm in the outfield, whether he's hitting or not. And there's just a huge log jam there at outfield. So you kind of want to move one of those pieces, but it's so rich with talent, especially on the defensive side. It's just like, how are you going to get all of these guys at bats?
Yeah.
It's going to be really tricky. And it will take some injuries and some fluky things to happen and guys to get cold and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially on the in the outfield perspective. Sam Hilliard at AAA right now is hitting like over 400. I mean, it's crazy.
He's always been Mr. Albuquerque. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but
no, you're right. And I watched the Albuquerque game the other night, and Jordan Beck hit a leadoff home run, and then next AB got on and stole a base, and it's just like, yeah,
they're fun to watch. I know the record's not pretty, but they are fun to watch. I love all those guys.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So it's just really interesting state of affairs with the Rockies right now.
Yeah, I think that's the best way of putting it. And honestly, I think shifting gears a bit, I bring Aaron in and talk a little bit about how Tovar has been rolling, or James, you can jump on it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I thought you were going to introduce one of my cool segments with like a cool intro song or something.
No, I was going to talk just real quick. I was going to talk about the look ahead for the coming week. So as we mentioned, the next 2 series are in Coors Field, which is always exciting. So we hope they're going to perform a lot better than they did, obviously, the last couple weeks. But we got Hancock game 1 with the Mariners, Castillo, Kirby. All of those guys have ERAs right around 6 or above. So, I mean, those guys are off to slow starts. So let's see if we can keep that going. Coors Field isn't going to be the place for them to figure it out, right? It's a tough place for a starting pitcher to figure things out and get it right. So hopefully we can win that series. And then we got the Padres. That's always going to be a fun time, a little bit of a rivalry, right? And then they're off to Mexico to face the Astros. And that's going to be really interesting because, Aaron, are they playing in Mexico City?
Yeah, that's really high altitude, I hear, like 3 miles high.
Yeah, so those are going to be like 15-run games, which is going to be wild. So that should play right into our hands.
Yeah,
like, that's when you call up Jordan Beck. That's when you call up Sam Hilliard. That's when you call up all these. Hunter Goodman gets a call that day, and we're taking the
Rockies hitter. The next 2 weeks are going to be amazing for you. Seriously, they're going to be amazing. And if you can't figure it out in the next 2 weeks, then you got some pine with your name on it, I guess.
We're going to have to figure something else out.
All right, so let's talk about the best Rockies hitter by far right now is Tovar. What's he doing, Aaron?
I don't know. So we're going to try this segment at the end where we do a baseball savant dive into one of the players. And I am still learning this kind of stuff. This is something I'm not 100% sure on. So we're going to learn together, James and Noah. I mean, we're all professors and shit and stuff. So let's just see how this goes. So Ezequiel Tovar, you just said the best hitter, but is he? Would you say a 2% walk rate is elite?
No, that's not elite. That's
okay.
Elite.
Would you say his whiff rate is over under 30%?
It's got to be over.
Would you say
under?
Would you say it's over under 35%?
Oh, I was wrong.
It's 36%.
It is 36% whiff rate, which is in the lower 6th percentile of the league. His chase percent is sitting near 40%. And his K percentage is at 31%. One of the biggest knocks with Tovar coming into the season was his chase rate. He was, I think, led the league in chases last year. He still found a way to hit the ball. When he hits the ball, that's what these Rockies are doing. And I think this is a Bam Bam thing. I could be completely off. Swing early, swing often, swing hard. And that's, I mean, we see it with all the guys. Tovar seems to be taking that approach. His barrel rate, 71th percentile, 10.5% on average. His average exit velocity is at 91. So like he's hitting the ball and he's hitting hard. His batting average is sitting at 300. His expecting batting average should be around 229.
Holy cow.
So is he really the new leadoff guy? Like in the traditional setting, probably not. You want somebody who can set the tone. Like Kyle Schwarber, we just revitalized his season this past season, right? This past series, and dude, man, worked a 3-2 fastball and absolutely demolished a Feltner ball 450 feet to right center. Saw the same thing from Gio Realmuto. Worked a count, able to get it. Ezequiel Tovar and the rest of the Rockies are still not able to do that right now. He is crushing off speed. Off speed pitches include, thought I was ready for it, like splitters and changeups. However, he is whiffing a lot on those, 47%, but he's also has his highest slugging percentage on that. His fastball whiff rate is at 30%, which is, I don't know, I feel like that's high. I again, don't know what that quite means. But his breaking balls he can't hit them. I mean, 41.4% whiff rate on 35% of the plate appearances he has on breaking balls, 10 strikeouts on those. with only 1 home run to match. There's not a lot of power that comes off those breaking balls. So Tovar off to a great start, but I think we are going to see a little bit of a regression coming up based on those baseball savant stats.
The law of averages is going to kick in, is what you're telling me.
Law of averages.
I hate those law of averages.
Right. And so maybe that's how we end this conversation. So maybe that's my question for you all, because I was thinking about this earlier. But at what point, like, what's that breaking point? Like, we see Tovar. We all love Tovar. We all see the talent that he has. But at what point, where do we want him to get with these walk rates, strikeout rates, hard contacts? Like,
well, first of all, I
is.
heard you say 2 things. I heard you say that he's hitting off-speed pitches really well, but then he's also struggling with the whiff rate on off-speed pitches. Is that
so
right?
His MO, yeah. So he's changeups and splitters he's able to do damage on, right? If he hits it.
Don't hang it to him, basically.
Right. I mean, you his off-speed stuff, yeah, the off-speed, the curveball stuff is bad. The breaking stuff is bad. Because, like, all right, so this is where it comes. So his breaking ball whiff percentage is 41%, right? But his slugging on that is 370. His off-speed whiff percent is 48%, where his slugging is 583. So, like, when he's swinging, he's making contact, he's hitting it hard. If he's making contact, he's not getting that with the breaking stuff. And that kind of seems like the Rockies' MO. Go see a Monty, go see a Tolia, go see some of their ABs. Brenton Doyle to a point.
Yeah, I think just across the team, the guys that have seen, I mean, McMahon, I think, has been our best hitter. I think we overlooked him just for this segment. But him and Nolan Jones, I mean, I think Nolan Jones still leads the league in most pitches seen per plate appearance. And you'll get Charlie to do that as well. So those are 3 guys that are going to see pitches. Brandon Rogers, I think last year swung at the most first pitches in baseball. It was like a graphic that popped up in Toronto. I was surprised because I did not track him as being that uber aggressive. But then you take Tovar into that, and I think Monty's done a much better job. But then we'll throw in Tolia. Essentially, you have we'll go with this. You have 3 guys that are going to go up there and take professional ABs. And depending on the catcher, I think Stallings has been great, to be honest. Stallings has done more than what we expected him to do coming into the year. And he's put together great at-bats. As has Jake Cave. I have to get that in there. But they have 4 guys on a good lineup day that are going to get professional ABs. And when that's less than half, you can't expect to be able to have these games where you can score in any inning. That's the biggest thing. In Toronto, they scored in 6 or 7 innings in that first game, and then at one point had 1 run in 27 innings across a certain inning to a certain inning in Philly from the last day of Toronto over. It's just stuff like that. That inconsistency directly roots from a lack of connected approach, and that's what the Dodgers have always done so well.
In my mind, and Noah, this would be fantastic if you could get to the bottom of this when you can actually speak to some of the guys in the clubhouse. But what is the hitting philosophy? Because plate discipline seems to be an extremely weird place right now, because the pitches that Tovar's selecting to swing at, I'm watching Nolan Jones's at bats, and I can't recall a person that I've seen strike out looking more than what Nolan Jones is doing right now. But then you mentioned he's also seeing the most pitches, right? And so it comes down to plate discipline and how important that is. And like, I just don't see a clear philosophy on what Rockies hitters are doing in regards to pitch selection. It's just, it's really weird, and I don't know how to describe it, but all I know is it's not right. It's really not right. And so I'm really curious, like, what their philosophy is from the hitting coach on down, or if it really is just like each guy has their own approach to everything. Like, is there really a message from the top down that's of how they want hitters to approach things, or are they just letting guys go willy-nilly and do their own thing? Because the plate discipline is just weird to me right now.
Plate discipline is weird, and it does pay off. Like we all know, like if you're in an advantageous hitters account, you're gonna do well with it, right? So like working the count, we heard Aaron Schunk in the offseason tell us like, yeah, these guys will go up and they'll try to work a count and they'll try to get what he wants, what the pitch they want on the count they want, that kind of stuff, right? So like with the Tovar, for example, when he's ahead of the count, so let's say he has round numbers are nice, right? So he has 80 at bats. He's been ahead. He's hit the ball ahead in the count 20 times. So a quarter of the time, he has a 1.219 OPS on those. Okay.
Wow.
An even count, he has another 25% of his at bats, his plate appearances have been in even counts. He has a 976 OPS. When he gets behind, which is in half of his at bats, he has a 644 OPS. So like when they are able to, when he is, Tovar specifically, able to get ahead, like he is able to take complete advantage of it. That's when he's barreling it up. That's when he's getting it. So like having that philosophy, working accounts, battling stuff off, like it doesn't seem that's where that philosophy is, but numbers say it should be where your philosophy goes.
Yeah, and like guys like Todd Helton, Jason Giambi, for example, they'd get behind in counts, but they'd always fight back to get back into the count by fighting pitches off. And it doesn't seem like a lot of guys are super or uber talented at that. Obviously, you know, those are the one end of the spectrum, but you know, Tony Gwynn had a 300 average with 2 strikes.
Yeah.
Not expecting everybody to be Tony Gwynn, but it's just like we have to be more resilient when we're down in the count. You're facing major league, the best in the world at what they do. You're not going to be able to be ahead or even in a count more often than not. More often than not, you're going to be behind in the count. So you have to be more resilient, and that's what I want to see. That's what I need to see.
Yeah, and Aaron, the numbers that you threw out, that made me that was shocking to me, because to have an 1100 plus when you're ahead in the count OPS is incredible. And I think even or also when you're even in the count, whether it be 1-1 or 2-2, I think it's important to break those down into separate, because 1-1, that's a swing count. You know, I guess I don't have the data to back this up. 1-1 swing count, more times than not, they're going to throw something in the zone because the pitcher knows that's the biggest pitch of the at bat. 2-2, that's kind of a different scenario because you're still battling with 2 strikes.
So I'm going to cut you off there. Your point is valid. He has his 1-1 count batting average OPS is 1.20. His 2-2 count batting average OPS is 0.
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, is there a more drastic difference that's possible there?
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah, just thought something fun to kind of end the banter with. Why don't you guys take your hot takes?
You go ahead and you lead us off again, James. You're up in the series, so that's how we'll do it.
All right, so we got 2 series coming up in Coors. I think we take both series.
First 2 of the year, baby.
I'm going to go with that. And I don't know what else my hot take could possibly be here.
Give a player prediction.
He just slipped.
Vodnik gets his first save.
Oh, okay. I like that, because that means that Buddy's handing the ball over to him in the 9th, and someone's got to conquer Coors Field. Record-wise, do you think 4-2 then for the 6 games?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to copy you, but I think they're going to win both series. I think this is like a coming out party for the team. They had an off day in Denver yesterday, or today. Today's Thursday. They have an off day today, spend with their families, get back home, get home cooking. I'm going to go 4-2 as well. They're going to win both series. And my player prediction is that Kyle Freeland works into the 6th inning for the first time this year.
Is it a quality start?
But sure. Yeah, we'll get to six innings, 3 runs or less, quality start, and he'll meet the requirements there.
Okay, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think that'd be. I mean, right now that'll be going in game 2, so that's going to be Luis Castillo versus K Free, and that has potential to be a pitching matchup. Just with, I know the numbers aren't pretty for either of them, but Castillo can pitch, man.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah,
All right, we'll leave it with that.
Yep.
Go Rocks!
Woo!
Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for more content.